I still remember the exact second I realized Emily was cheating on me. It wasn't subtle. There were no secrets whispered behind locked doors, no suspicious text messages discovered at 3 in the morning. No, she went about it like she wanted me to know, like she needed me to see. We were at her company's annual work party, some fancy event at a downtown hotel ballroom. The place was decked out in gold and black streamers, with champagne glasses clinking and corporate elites half pretending to enjoy themselves. The tension in the air was always typical at these events, a mixture of forced smiles and a lot of back-patting. I'd come along because Emily insisted. I never liked those functions, but she always said it was good optics for her to show up with her husband. If only I'd known what she was planning. From the moment we walked in, I felt a shift. Something was just off. Emily spent the entire cab ride fiddling with her phone, ignoring small talk, ignoring me. Then we stepped into that ballroom, and she instantly lit up, smiling in a way she never did at home anymore. She'd gotten distant over the last few months. Lots of late nights, work trips, and a constant swirl of secrecy around her phone. But I never had proof. I just had a gut feeling that kept me up at night. Tonight, though, that feeling was a 5-alarm siren in my head. We made our rounds, and the tension ramped up a notch when we drifted toward the open bar. That's when I saw him. Brad, a self-absorbed finance bro, the new hotshot in Emily's department, with an expensive watch that glinted every time he raised his glass and a handshake that screamed, "I'm trying too hard to impress you." He was tall, with a muscled frame that his tailored suit couldn't fully hide. I'd heard his name before. Emily had mentioned him here and there, but always in a dismissive tone, like he was just some coworker she barely tolerated. In reality, the way she walked up to him, that smile crossing her face, well, that told me everything. He turned toward her, and his eyes swept over her body in a way that made my fists clench. She leaned in, laughed, touched his arm, just like that. Then, right when I was starting to step forward, she motioned to me with a casual wave of her hand. The moment was awkward, like she'd forgotten she had a husband, or maybe she just didn't care. "Hey, babe," she said, spinning around, hooking her arm through mine. "This is Brad. You know, the guy I told you about, the MMA fanatic?" Brad smirked and offered his hand. "Good to meet you, man," he said. "Emily tells me you're into boxing or something. Maybe we can compare notes." The challenge in his voice was obvious. The way he looked me over, the way his lips curved into a smug smile, all of it practically screamed I've already won. Her nails dug into his sleeve a little too intimately. I noticed, and so did everyone else in our circle. I tried to suppress my anger, tried to act clueless, but it must have shown in my eyes. Brad grinned, refusing to let go of that cocky expression. Emily kept her hand on him, and when she smiled, it was sharper than I'd ever seen. "Oh, babe, don't be shy," she teased, tossing her hair over one shoulder. "Brad's really good at MMA. You guys could be like sparring buddies." "Right, Brad?" He chuckled, putting his drink down on a nearby table. A few of Emily's coworkers, sensing a show, slowly inched closer. "That's not a bad idea," he said. "But I gotta admit, I like a challenge. And I'm thinking your husband here might not be up for it." I could feel my heart thudding in my ears. "You want to find out the hard way?" I asked, forcing a calmness into my voice that I didn't feel. He took off his suit jacket and rolled up his sleeves, revealing corded forearms. "Let's see if that boxing of yours is worth a damn." It happened quickly. People started murmuring and forming a loose circle. Emily stepped back, sliding against the crowd, a sly smile on her face. For a split second, I remembered all the nights I'd spent at the gym, working the punching bag, sparring with guys bigger than me. Brad had no idea. He threw the first punch, a wild swing aimed at my jaw. I slipped to the side, letting him stumble past me. A few onlookers laughed. A couple started cheering. Brad's cheeks went red. He turned, tried a second swing. This time I caught his wrist, twisted it just enough to send a spike of pain up his arm. I could see the shock on his face. He was a half-decent fighter, but powered entirely by ego. He hadn't expected me to be any good. "Come on, babe, don't embarrass him," Emily said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her words cut deeper than I cared to admit. Embarrass him? She was talking about me. Brad grunted and yanked free of my grip, stepping back. His posture was off. Frustration was obvious in the way his chest heaved. "Lucky shot," he spat, clenching and unclenching his fists. I squared up again, mentally preparing for his next move. But that's when Emily raised her hand, and her eyes locked on someone behind me. "Somebody better step in," she called out. "I don't want Brad getting hurt. Or my husband, for that matter. Where's... Someone get Mark's boss." Mark's boss? Confusion shot through me. I worked at a different company, but my direct manager, Richard, was well known in local business circles, so apparently he'd ended up at this big corporate party too. I guess Emily had known that. Maybe she planned it. Maybe this was all some twisted setup. Sure enough, I spotted Richard's broad shoulders as he pushed through the crowd. Hey, break it up, Richard said, stepping forward, looking at me with disapproval. We don't do this in a place of business. Brad feigned injury, rubbing his wrist dramatically. He went crazy on me, man, he said, adopting a victim's tone. Emily put a hand to her mouth, eyes wide with false concern. The crowd started murmuring again, all eyes on me. I opened my mouth to set the record straight, but before I could say anything, Emily pointed at me, stepping closer to Richard. He's out of control, she said. He almost broke Brad's arm. You saw it, right? He needs to go before he hurts somebody. I stared at her in shock. What are you? She cut me off with an icy glare. You don't belong here. This is my company's event. If you can't keep your temper in check, you should leave. A couple of uniformed security officers, probably hired for the night, approached. One of them looked from me to Brad, then to Emily. Ma'am, is everything okay? She folded her arms and nodded at me, pouting her lips like she was scared. He's the problem, she said. Get him out. Richard, my boss, pinned me with a hard stare. Mark, you heard her. Let's not escalate. Go home. We'll sort this out Monday. I swallowed hard, rage boiling under my skin. How dare she pretend I was the aggressor? My fingers curled into fists at my sides. I'm not going anywhere until you tell the truth, I said through clenched teeth. Brad stepped forward, smirk reappearing. Listen, man, you heard them. It's better for everybody if you leave now. His tone was infuriating enough, but it was the scorn in Emily's eyes that did it. She was watching me like I was garbage. I saw her tilt her chin at one of the security guards, and that was all it took. Suddenly, arms wrapped around me from behind. I tried to shrug free, but another guard took me by the shoulder. The crowd parted as they started dragging me away. Their grips were rough, twisting my arms up behind my back. I grimaced at the pain, but I didn't cry out. You think you can throw me out? I snarled at the closest guard. I tried to jerk free, adrenaline spiking, but they were big guys, and they handled me like an unruly drunk. The next thing I knew, I was shoved forward. My ankle banged into a chair, and I nearly went down. I heard Brad's mocking laughter from somewhere behind me. Move! One guard said, gripping my arm so hard I felt my joints protest. Anger roared in my chest, and I shoved him back. He staggered, but the second guard cracked me in the rib with an elbow. It wasn't a full punch, but enough that my eyes stung with pain. Next thing I knew, one forced my arm behind my back again, and they carried me a few steps. Get off me! I barked, but it was no use. A few onlookers gasped or laughed. I saw people filming with their phones. Emily was nowhere to be seen, probably lost in the throng. I could just imagine her leaning on Brad, flashing that smug smile. They hustled me across the polished floor and out the side exit, past the catering tables and coat racks. I caught one last glimpse of the main ballroom, the swirling lights, the curious stares, and then I was in a back hallway. The security guys yanked open a heavy door and practically threw me out into the night. I stumbled, almost falling face first onto the pavement, catching myself at the last second. The door slammed behind me, and I heard the metal latch click. I stood there, breathing hard, pulse racing, my side throbbing from that elbow. My own wife had orchestrated that entire fiasco. My boss had told me to go home like I was some troublemaking teen. And Brad? God, the thought of his smug face was almost more than I could handle. I wanted to punch something, but raging in an alley alone was pointless. I forced myself to breathe, to think. My phone was still in my pocket. I grabbed it, glancing around to see if anyone had followed me. The alley was empty, lit only by a flickering streetlight. I tapped the phone's screen, hands shaking a bit, and stared at my reflection in the blackness. My lip was split from some earlier scuffle, maybe when I bumped the guard's elbow. Great. I exhaled and turned away from the building, adrenaline still making my heart pound. My own wife, my own freaking wife. I got into my car and sped off, ignoring the traffic lights until the last second. I had no intention of going back inside or waiting for her. She'd humiliated me. Worse, she'd turned the narrative around to make me look like an unstable idiot who couldn't control his temper. She wanted me gone, fine, but this was far from over. I barely slept that night. My mind replayed the moment Emily touched Brad's arm, the way she clung to him in front of everyone, the triumphant twist to her lips. The memory was acid in my veins. I had to figure out how long this had been going on, but deep down, I already knew it wasn't some one-time thing. The way she set it all up, the way she'd been acting for months, this was way bigger. When the first rays of sunlight pushed through the bedroom curtains, I was already dressed, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I barely tasted. Emily hadn't come home, or if she had, she'd slept in the guest room. The house was silent. I turned my phone over and over in my hands, thinking. Gathering evidence was the only way to beat her at her own game. She wanted to paint me as some jealous psycho. If I wanted a clean break and revenge, I had to do this smart. I'd installed a small tracking app on her phone a few weeks ago, in a rare moment when she left it unlocked on the kitchen counter. It was risky and probably illegal, but I didn't care. I opened my phone, found the app, and sure enough, it showed her location. She wasn't even in the house. She was at some unknown address across town, probably spent the night with Brad or maybe just crashed somewhere else. I tapped my foot, glaring at the screen. I was going to gather every bit of evidence I needed to ensure that in the divorce, I could walk away with everything and leave her in the dirt. I waited until mid-afternoon before I finally saw her come home. I heard her car pull up, the hum of the engine shutting off. Then the front door opened and she stepped in like she owned the place, still wearing last night's dress, hair a little messy. She looked at me in mild surprise. "Wow, you're here," she said, raising an eyebrow. "I thought you'd be at the gym cooling off or something." I stayed seated in the living room armchair. "I could say the same. Where were you?" She smirked, shrugged, and dropped her purse on the couch. "Would you even believe me if I told you?" I set my jaw. "Cut the crap. I'm done with the games. I know you're sleeping with Brad. I know you set me up last night." She laughed, but it was hollow. "Set you up? You attacked him. You're the one who had me thrown out by security," I snapped, rising to my feet. My voice echoed in the quiet living room. "You wanted to humiliate me." She stepped closer, arms folded. "You humiliated yourself when you started swinging. You're just too blind to see it." I clenched my fists. "I'm not here to argue semantics. I'm here to tell you that this is over. And I'm going to make sure you lose everything, Emily." Her eyes flickered with a mixture of fear and defiance. "Oh, please. I've got enough dirt on you to—" I cut her off with a short, humorless laugh. "Dirt on me? I don't think so." She didn't know about the tracking app or the data I'd begun collecting from her hidden burner phone. Her eyes narrowed like she was picking up on the confidence in my voice. She inhaled, probably ready to hurl an insult, but I held up a hand. "You know what? We'll continue this later. I've got an errand to run." I brushed past her on my way out, ignoring her glare. Rage still simmered in my chest, but I kept it bottled up. I had a plan to execute, and losing my temper here was not part of it. Besides, I was still raw from last night's fiasco. If I stayed any longer, we'd just end up screaming at each other. The next few days, I worked meticulously. I documented everything. Times Emily left the house, addresses she frequented, phone calls she made. I took screenshots of her texts. She was careless enough to let the phone lie around while she showered, and I snagged it for 2 minutes, sending the screenshots to myself. Everything pointed to the same story. She and Brad had been hooking up regularly, meeting at hotels, skipping off during lunch breaks. It was sickening how open they were once you pulled back the curtain. I even found messages between Emily and my boss, Richard. She was feeding him some story about me being volatile, having anger issues, claiming I might be dangerous. She was covering her bases at work, probably laying the groundwork to sabotage my position, maybe get me fired so I'd be powerless in the divorce. Brilliant scheme if you think about it. She was cunning. I had to give her that. But she underestimated how far I'd go. I'd decided that the next time she met Brad, I'd show up, confront them with divorce papers, and end it on my terms. I reached out to an attorney, paid him extra for expedited paperwork, and had a stack of official forms in hand within a week. Everything set. I got the notification on my phone mid-morning, just like I predicted. Emily was heading toward the usual spot, a boutique hotel downtown with discreet parking. My heart hammered, adrenaline surging. This was it. I told my boss I needed the afternoon off. I didn't bother with details. Grabbed the folder with the divorce papers and drove over. I parked a block away and waited until the little dot on my tracking app stopped moving. She was inside now. Sure enough, a minute later, I saw Brad's black BMW pull up. He got out, looked around, and strolled in like he owned the place. The rage in me boiled. I let them both get settled, then headed across the street. At the hotel's front desk, the bored-looking clerk gave me a second glance. I considered bribing her for a room number, but I caught a glimpse of the elevator panel lighting up as some tourist pressed the call button. On a hunch, I followed him onto the elevator, then hopped out on the third floor, wandering the halls quietly. Sure enough, at the far end of the corridor, I spotted Brad stepping out of a corner suite. He didn't see me. He was too busy texting on his phone, probably telling Emily he was there. My heart thumped. I ducked behind a service card. Brad knocked on a room door. Emily cracked it open. The next moment, he slipped in, and the door shut. I clenched my teeth. This was it. No more illusions. I walked briskly down the hallway, ignoring the pounding in my head. The door read 312. I raised a fist and hammered it 3 times, the sound echoing off the walls. I heard muffled voices inside. Then Emily's voice. "Who is it?" I said nothing. I just waited. The door opened a crack, and I shoved it the rest of the way open. Emily stumbled back with a gasp. Wearing only a tight-fitting blouse and a short skirt, her hair disheveled like they'd been fooling around. Brad stood behind her by the bed, eyes wide, shirt unbuttoned, stubble shadowing his jaw. "What the hell?" Emily yelled, regaining her balance. "Are you insane?" Brad squared his shoulders. "Dude, you got a problem?" I let out a short laugh. "Damn right I do." I reached into my inside jacket pocket and withdrew the stack of papers. I shoved them at Emily. She swatted them away, and they scattered across the carpet. The top page read, "Petition for dissolution of marriage," in bold letters. "Congratulations," I said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're free to screw him all you want now. Just sign on the dotted line." She looked at the scattered sheets, face pale. You brought divorce papers?" Brad rubbed the back of his neck, stepping forward like he was going to block me from Emily. "Hey man, calm down. You can't just barge in here. You want trouble?" My blood was pounding. This was my moment. For a split second, I wanted to break his jaw. Instead, I slapped him across the face hard. The crack of it exploded in the small room. He staggered sideways, slammed into the dresser, and nearly fell. Emily shrieked, "Mark, what the hell are you doing?" Brad blinked, then tried to come at me. He got as far as 1 step before I planted a stiff palm on his chest and shoved. He sprawled back, head hitting the wall with a dull thud. His eyes were wild with surprise and pain. One hand rose to the side of his face where I'd slapped him. I pointed at him. "Don't even think about it," I hissed. "If you step up again, I'll ruin more than your face. I'll ruin your goddamn life." Brad bared his teeth but didn't move. He must have seen something in my expression that stopped him cold. Emily rushed over to him, hand on his shoulder, turning back to glare at me. "You can't do this! You'll go to jail!" "I don't care," I muttered. "If you think I'm joking, try me. I've already got all the evidence I need, pictures, text messages, hell, video from the last hotel you two scumbags visited. I could blow this up at your workplace, Emily, or maybe send it to your mother. Should I do that?" Her face contorted in fury. "You're out of your mind. You're not the man I married. This is insane." I smirked. "Maybe, but it's the man you created." Brad tried to stand, leaning against the dresser. I snapped my gaze to him. "Stay down. This isn't a discussion." He paused, then sank back against the wall, chest heaving. It was clear he was tough, but he was also a coward who'd never faced real consequences. Emily dropped her hand from Brad's shoulder and pointed at the messy stack of divorce papers on the floor. "Fine," she spat. "Get out and I'll sign them. Happy?" I leaned in, lowering my voice, letting my anger show. "No, I'm not happy. I'm furious, but the sooner I'm rid of you, the better." I kicked the doorstop aside. "You're going to regret humiliating me the way you did. I swear, if you two try to spin this around on me, I'll bury you both." Before she could respond, I turned on my heel and left. Behind me, I heard Brad mutter a curse, and Emily hiss something at him, voice trembling with shock. I didn't bother to listen. I'd said my piece. Over the next few days, Emily moved out in fits and starts. She stayed away for a while, probably rethinking her strategy or hoping I'd calm down. Meanwhile, I laid out all her things in neat piles. Clothes, photos, the random bits and pieces she'd left around. I was done playing nice. I arranged for movers that specialized in quick transitions. My attorney told me that legally I couldn't just throw her stuff out on the sidewalk, but I could certainly pack it up and have it delivered to her, especially if I gave her fair warning. So that's exactly what I did. I phoned her mother, Linda, a week prior. "Linda," I said, forcing politeness, "I'm moving Emily's things out. I'll have them shipped to your address. She can pick them up from there or figure out her next move. That's between you two." Linda was outraged. She'd always been protective of Emily, always quick to blame me. I expected the blowback, so I just calmly repeated that the marriage was over and I had no obligation to store Emily's belongings in my home. The conversation ended with Linda screaming, "You'll regret this, you worthless excuse for a husband," before slamming the phone down. Whatever. That was the final piece in place. The day I hired the movers turned out to be the day Emily decided to show up with reinforcements in tow. I'd already had half her stuff packed into boxes on the lawn: couches, tables, boxes of clothes. A moving truck sat in the driveway, ramp open. Two guys were hauling out a dresser. I was on the porch, watching them work, making sure everything went according to plan, when I heard a car screech to a halt out front. It was Emily's sedan. She practically jumped out of the driver's seat. Her mother, Linda, flung open the passenger door, and climbing out of the back seat was none other than my boss, Richard. Yes, the same one who got security to throw me out of that party. A sick sense of amusement flickered through me as I watched them march up my front walk, expressions ranging from furious to disapproving. "What the hell is this?" Emily demanded, gesturing at the boxes. "You're tossing my belongings outside like trash?" I folded my arms. "No, I'm sending them to a new address, as we agreed." "We never agreed to this," Linda hissed. "You can't do this to my daughter." She stomped up onto the porch, nearly bumping into me. "Show some respect, you degenerate." Richard stepped forward, adjusting the collar of his dress shirt. "Mark, let's handle this civilly. You don't need to cause a scene. Emily told me everything you've done, how you attacked Brad, how you've been threatening her. This is unacceptable." I laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "Threatening her? She's lucky I haven't pressed charges for adultery and defamation. As for you, Richard, you want to talk about unacceptable? You humiliated me in front of half the city, calling security on me like I was some drunken idiot," he bristled. "You're the one who was fighting. You're the one who can't control his temper," Emily chimed in, her voice trembling with rage. "You're still the same old hothead. This is exactly why we're done. If you could just be a normal human being, you cheated on me and humiliated me in front of everyone." I cut her off, my voice rising. "Don't pretend you're an innocent victim." Linda suddenly lunged forward, aiming to slap me. I caught her wrist midair. She tried to yank free, cursing under her breath. "Take your hands off my mother!" Emily shrieked. I shoved Linda back a step, not hard enough to knock her over, but enough to send a clear message. "Back off, Linda, you're on my property. I'm giving you one chance to calm down." Before Linda could respond, Richard tried to get between us. "That's enough, Mark. Don't make me call the police." I bared my teeth in a snarl, pointing a finger at him. "Call them. You're trespassing. I told Emily to come alone to pick up her junk. You and Linda have no business here." Emily looked like she wanted to claw my eyes out. "Don't you get it? Richard's here to mediate. I asked him to help sort this out. You can't just—" "I can and I have," I said, gesturing at the boxes. "I hired movers to deliver your crap to your mom's place because you sure as hell aren't staying here. That was the plan. Now get off my porch, or I'll have them load your sorry asses into the truck with your furniture." Richard stepped closer, bravado flaring in his eyes. "Stop this nonsense. You're acting like a child. You've always been a bit of a—" He never finished that sentence. I slapped him hard across the mouth. The sound was like a gunshot in the crisp afternoon air. He stumbled back, nearly losing his footing at the top of the porch steps. Emily screamed, "Oh my God!" Linda gasped, eyes bulging. "Mark, you're insane!" Richard wiped blood from his split lip, staring at it like he couldn't believe I'd struck him. "I'll have you arrested. Do you hear me? This is assault." I let out a derisive snort, stepping forward. My heart hammered, the adrenaline searing through me. "Go ahead and call. I'll tell them you and Linda forced your way onto my property after I asked you to leave. It'll be your word against mine. And the movers." I glanced behind me where the movers, wide-eyed, were hovering near the truck. "I've already told them you were trespassing, and if they back me up, that's all the cops need to hear." "You're a damn lunatic," Linda hissed. I cut her off by raising a hand. "Shut it, Linda. I'm done listening. You're the one who raised a cheat for a daughter." Then I turned to Emily. "Pack up your crap and get out. Don't come back unless it's through a lawyer." "Understood?" Emily's face contorted. "You're going to rot in hell for this." I shrugged. "Maybe so, but I'll be rotting in my own house, free of your treachery. Now get off my porch." Richard, still nursing his bleeding lip, tried to muster up some composure. "Mark, you're finished at the company. First thing tomorrow morning, I'm firing you. You hear me? You're a liability. I barked a laugh, stepping closer to him. Good luck with that, boss. I've got enough evidence of your cozy relationship with my soon-to-be ex-wife to sue you for harassment and wrongful termination. So, go ahead, try me. We'll see who's finished. Richard's face went pale. For a moment, nobody spoke. The tension was suffocating, a coil ready to snap. Then Linda grabbed Emily's arm. We're leaving. This is pointless. Emily sneered at me. Don't think for a second this is over. I'll find a way to get what I deserve. I locked eyes with her. What you deserve is in those boxes. I waved a hand at the movers who were finishing the last few loads. Now get the hell off my property. If I see any of you crossing the property line again, I'll grab my magnum and we'll see how brave you are then. Richard's voice cracked with fury. This isn't over, you piece of garbage. I'll have you blacklisted from every decent company in the city. You'll never work again. I shrugged. That's what you said last time. Do what you want. But if you set foot on my land again, I will see it as trespassing. And I can promise you I won't fight fair next time. Emily, Linda, and Richard turned away, half stumbling down the porch steps. Linda hurled one more insult over her shoulder, calling me a worthless bastard. I just stood there, arms crossed, watching them retreat to the sedan. The movers, pale-faced, continued loading the final pieces of furniture into the truck. One of them shot me a nervous glance. I nodded, letting him know it was all right. The next few minutes passed in silence as I oversaw the rest of the packing. The truck driver asked for Linda's address, which I provided. Then, as if on cue, Emily's sedan roared off down the street, Linda in the passenger seat, Richard in the back, all of them probably cursing my name, vowing revenge. I didn't care anymore. By the time the movers pulled out of the driveway, the sun was dipping behind the houses across the street. A deep calm settled over me. My porch was scattered with bits of debris, torn cardboard, some scraps of tape. I picked up a piece of bubble wrap, tossed it into the trash bin, and exhaled slowly. The house was now entirely mine. Empty, but mine.